Hi folks, we had a comment coming in from Boner Vanga. I actually really love this name, super cool. We had a little bit of back and forth conversation in the comments, and then he was asking, hey, is there any way to make triggers only activate on certain scenes? For example, I don't want to have a meme trigger happen while channel switch scene reward is happening, if that makes any sense at all. And that's kind of what we're going to be covering in today's video. We're talking about variable controls and LioranBoard and how to kind of utilize them to make it work for our stream. So with that said, let's get straight into our video of the day. Hi folks, if you've landed here, welcome and congrats. Here we take a look at anything we can do to help your stream out, whether it's visual, audio, or even brand. I'm your man, the LioranBoard, your stream champ, and here is where we make it all happen. Make sure you're dropping a like and a love on this channel, and also if you see me live, you're welcome to jump in, ask me questions, or even game with me. It's always a good time. Real quick, I also want to let you know we did open up a spot in our community Discord. That's the Friendly Fire Gaming Crew, where you can stop by, ask any sort of questions as well. That's if you don't feel like dropping them on the YouTube comments, I will see them there as well, and then I can try to help you out as best as I possibly can. I don't have all the answers, but I got quite a few. So let's go ahead and jump into the Stream PC, and I'll show you kind of how to set up variable control using LioranBoard. All right, so I'm over on Stream PC side of things. I'm going to go ahead and make this OBS nice and big for us as best as I can. I'll kind of let you know I've preset this up a little bit, and I've done something on my end as well to kind of make this work. The only way to really make triggers happen, whether or not something is or isn't happening that I've found, now there's also stackable commands and some advanced stuff, is using the math variable system in LioranBoard. If you all don't know what LioranBoard is, it's an amazing free stream deck tool. I'm going to link my installation video down below and also do a tag for you as well. You really want to get this LioranBoard tool if you're running OBS Studio. It makes customizability just crazy amazing. So without getting too crazy off topic, I set up two scenes. This is like my recording scene. We're going to pretend that this is a scene that we may or may not want to have sort of assets or videos or memes firing off. And then down below, I've made another one here, very similar, with it just has the YouTube flipping logo, so you can kind of tell the difference. Normally on these scenes, you'd have your game populated or your chat or whatever it is, but I kept it transparent so you can see all the OBS buttons in my desktop. But this is, if you see, there's two different scenes here. They're very they're very similar, but I went ahead and did the different flipping logos so you can tell the difference of them. So what we're talking about here on LioranBoard is setting up some sort of mixed system for it. Now, if you don't know what variables are in general, well, it's your math. It's your X, Y, Z, if this equals that type of thing, and it's built into LioranBoard. And what makes this possible is a really cool thing called compare if skip type thing. So what I've done here is I've made two buttons for my scene switching. I have a scene that I don't want memes firing off on a scene that I do want memes firing off. And what you'll need to do if you go into commands is this is a scene switch, so it switches to the correct scene, and then it sets a variable, and we're going to use this variable as a toggle. So I just use the variable X, and it just sets X to 0 on this scene, and in this one it sets X to 1 in this scene. So it's kind of going to be basically our toggle, identifying that these scenes are different and that we want them to have or not have assets firing off. And then I went ahead and also did a retrigger on this button. I'll kind of explain how the flow works. So all the stuff up here on the very top, just kind of ignore it. We're really just kind of worried about these buttons down below. I'll try to make it as simple as possible for it. We want to have a variable that says, hey, it's on this scene, and if you see that this variable says no, we're going to skip the firing action and we're going to keep it in the queue. And so when we get to the next scene that says yes, then we can start triggering it. And that's kind of what we're doing with these button triggers. So in order to do this, you have to have it kind of breaking down. I have two assets here. I have a dab. That's the quick little minion dab across the thing. I'm just going to toggle it off. I have a toasty, and he just kind of comes up and says toasty. And then if you go to the other scene here, I also have dab, and I also have toasty. One of these scenes will be allowed to fire them off with the button presses, and one of them won't. So if I go into the board itself, we'll minimize this. I'm just going to demo it real fast, and I hope this kind of answers your question, and I'll open up the commands in just a second to kind of show you how I digested it. So I'm on my nose scene. If I hit a dab, nothing happens. You can see it thinking in the background. It's going to hold a variable in the queue for us, so when you switch to the scene, it will hopefully, give it a second, dab goes across a little bit of a, I need to cut the beginning of that animation, but it's fine. And the reason why this is great is because if somebody uses like channel points to redeem that dab press, they don't just lose their channel points. There's no real way to save it. Once they redeem a dab or whatever, if you wanted to give them their points back, you can do that, or you'll just kind of keep it in the queue, so when you switch to that other scene that makes more sense for these assets to fire off, it will fire off automatically for you. So this is the scene with the YouTube symbol that we're allowing things, and if you hit the toasty, it will pop up. And if we're in the other scene, if we hit one of these, it will not pop up, but it will save it for the next time. And all this is variable control. So let me show you how I did this. The very first thing we're going to do is press the dab itself. Open this up. Edit commands. So what I did was I made a variable for every single asset in there, and there's two reasons why. I didn't want them playing at the same time as well, so there's two stop checks in here. So when you press dab, it actually adds a variable to it, making its own variable. If you want to call this Y or Z, you can, but it makes its own variable, and then it presses this button, 929, which is this big mixer button. When that happens, it compares whether or not the variable has been added, and if it is greater than 0, then it presses this. And the reason why this is really handy is if you have somebody request multiples or you request multiples, it's going to keep that dab number at 1 or above. So if you press it 5 times, it'll go dab, 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 dab. It will go up to dab equals 5. And then as it uses those assets, it'll go equals 4, equals 3, equals 2, equals 1, equals 0. Oh, I don't have to do it anymore. Again, I don't want anybody losing out on their channel points, and if somebody's redeeming them at the same time, that's kind of the whole point on there. Okay. Afterwards, it will go ahead and press this dab button, and this is where the actual visual effect comes in, and this is a little bit complicated. So the very first thing is it checks for X. Again, you can use whatever variable you really want. If X equals 0, this is the scene setup, then it will skip this entire algorithm. So if it's on a scene that says 0 for X, a scene that we don't want them playing these memes, then it's going to skip everything, but it will keep that V value or whatever dab value or whatever we have going on here. There's a V value in here too. I'll explain that in just a second. And so it will skip the entire thing. The other thing we're going to do is I have this V value. This V value I set up to say basically, is there an asset currently playing? If there is, then we're going to skip the entire thing. But we're going to keep that dab value at 1+ because we still need to execute it. If the V value is at 1+, or I said, plus or equals 2, then we're going to minus it by 1. So if it was at 1, it will go down to 0. And then we're going to play the animation. And then we're going to go back and we're going to hit that mixer button again to see if there's any values that need to be rechecked. Very complicated, I know, but if you want to pause the video here and take a look at how I constructed this, you'll see that really what makes this thing tick and fire off is this compare skip if function. It compares a value, it sets another value, and it kind of executes things based on whether or not it's in the correct scene or if there's another value already or another asset already playing. And if that's the case, then we're going to re-trigger the button and play the video, play the animation if everything equals true. So complicated, I know, but you need to use a little bit of the math skip buttons, and you'll see kind of what I'm saying is the two ones that really work out really well is change value. So adding a value to it. You can use clear value that will just take it and wipe it to 0. And then this compare skip value, if it is equal to or is it greater than. You have to use a little bit of math and ingenuity for this. And so I'll kind of walk you through the button presses. Somebody redeems channel points because I have this set for a Twitch trigger for channel points. So if somebody wants to hit it for me, they'll press this button, or I can go in and press this button. It adds +1 to the dab counter and then goes to the mixer button. The mixer button says, hey, I'm going to go and check to see if dab is greater than 1. In this case, it is because we just pressed it. It's going to go into the dab button over here, and then it's going to ask, is it on the correct scene? Yes or no. Hey, guess what? In this case, it is. Is another asset playing at the moment? Yes or no? In this case, there's no other assets playing at the moment, so it's going to execute that dab function, subtract dab by 1, and now it's going to equal 0, so it won't trigger again automatically. And then it's going to recheck this button over here on the end, so it will see if there's any other values that need to be cleared. That's kind of how I done it. I know it's a little bit of trickery. There might be other ways to kind of do it, but without going too crazy with some of the other things, like there's a stackable extension, math extension that I know that Lorian and the team has made, and so that will kind of help in this situation. But that's kind of how I did it, and I think it works out really well, and that's one reason why you see all these extra buttons over here for me, because I have the same thing. I don't want two values playing off at the same time. So I hope that answers your questions. If you have any more, feel free to ask them, and I'll see glitches on the next video. We've got more coming. So I'm thinking maybe with this Tarzan rope, I can jump through the window this way. You think I can make that? I might be able to make that. Oh!